happened. A little disappointed. Okay, just waiting for you all to get in and then we'll begin. Right, so we were talking about part A of reading, right? Can you all see the screen? All right. Okay, I'm going to start now. That's great, Dr. Hwd. Thanks for being here. Turn off your mic. That's what we do on conference calls. Right?
Hello, excuse me, no sound?
Dr. Hwd, I think you are mute now. Dr.
Hi,
Hwd,
doctor.
we cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
We cannot hear you here.
Dr. Hwd, kindly unmute yourself. We cannot hear you.
All right, can you guys hear me now? I apologize, I cannot record it and I wouldn't be recording it. Right? Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
So I think that, you guys would, I'd be having one more soon, so just focus on it, right? Let's just move to it. I hope you all are listening. What I'm saying is we're starting from beginning, right? I hope you all have time today. If not, then we'll be arranging one soon for sure, right? So what I'm saying is that on your exam day, you'd be having 3 parts, A, B, and C. I'm sure you're aware of that right now. And you would be given part A separately. You'd be given 15 minutes. I don't want you to think that you have 15 minutes. Always time yourself as 12 minutes. Out of those 12 minutes, give 2 minutes to just read in one out of 1 to 20 questions that you have for part A. Give 4 minutes to read in each of the passages and 6 minutes to solve in it. Is everybody clear so far about it? I'm hoping you are, right? I'm hoping you are. I hope you can hear me, and I'm hoping this is clear. All right. Now what we're doing is I would want you to read description every time you are doing your practice. I don't recommend that you do it in your test because by that time you'd be sure what to look, where to look, right? So here you'd be looking at what you have to answer like, right? Here they are saying answer in a short word or a short phrase, right? They're saying you can use words, numbers, or both. So this is a number, this is a word. You can use both in here. If they say use words or numbers, or if they just say use words only, then numbers would not be allowed. I hope that's clear. Now, I recommend that you start reading from question 16 to 20 first, right? first read them, then read question 8 to 15, and at the very end, I would want you to read question 1 to 7. Is that clear? And I would tell you why I want you to start like this. Now, the thing is that part A is more of a part where they'd be seeing if you are able to extract information, right? They're not saying if you understand it, even though you have to, but they're trying to say if you can locate the information between the lines, right? If you can understand it. All right, that's what they're trying to see. Okay, so let's read it. None of us have read the actual text. I'll be giving you time to do that, right? And I'm just telling you how to read it right now. And when you're going to practice on your own, you'd be timing yourself 2 minutes to just reading the questions 1 to 20. And I'm sure you all can do it with practice. I'm not saying that you'd be starting to do it right now, but with practice and by timing yourself 12 minutes exactly, you would be able to do it. And this is important. This timing thing is important. All of you have studied medicine in English, I'm sure of that. Even if you haven't, then you're going to take your medical exams in English, mostly where you're going, whether it be Australia, USA, England, or Ireland, wherever you're going, wherever you're taking this exam for, you would be doing your medicine or your talking or your conversation in English. So I am very 110% sure that all of you can pass this exam and all of you understand this English. I am 110% sure, even though I know none of you, right? Or maybe I know most of you, right? So let's begin. We'll be reading question 16 first, right? We have not read the passages. We're starting by reading the questions first, right? So it said here, if a feeding tube isn't straight, when you unwrap it, you should dash it. Now you see here, we haven't read it, but it's a thing that, you know, humans, we have a question in mind, right? We have a question in mind. When you question something, you try to understand it on your own. You try to answer it on your own. Then you become more involved, right? While you are doing your paper or you're studying anything, it's important that you engage all your senses, right? The sense of seeing, the sense of speaking, the sense of hearing, right? 3 of them mainly. So I would recommend that you take a bright pen, right? And you are allowed to use highlighters on your exam day, right? You're allowed to bring them, right? You're not supposed to answer in them, but if you want to use them, you can use them for marking the text. However, many of you wouldn't need it because after you'd be practicing at home, you would just need a 2HB pencil. That's how you'd write it. Or if you want to use a pen, you can use that, right? So I'm answering those questions as well. So see, we've just read the question, right? We don't know what they're trying to say, but we do know the question. It says, is the feeding tube. Now we do know that they're talking about a feeding tube. In the text in there will be a word or a phrase involving feeding tube. Then they'll be exactly talking about how, if it isn't straight, when you unwrap it, what you should do. Right? So these are your keywords. Always mark the keywords, right? They're really important. When you are reading, when you are having these 2 minutes to just read the questions, mark the keywords, all right? What we're doing right now is we're just marking the keywords in the 2 minutes that we're given, right? Okay, so you'd be marking the keywords. You'd be saying feeding tube, it's not straight. When you unwrap it, what should you do? Right? So mostly it's going to be a noun or a verb, or, you know, it's going to be, you're going to fill the blank in here with that. All right. The next one says patients are more likely to experience DASH if they need long-term feeding via tube. Right? So they're talking about an experience of long-term feeding via tube. So your question, one of the texts in there is going to have answer for this. Now, you know, the thing is that it does not haphazard, right? It is like this, that the answer for question 16 would be mostly in the text A or B. It would not be in the text C or D, right? So it's in descending order, right? What I'm trying to say here is that if you want to find out the answers, right? If you want to find out the answers for these questions, right? If you're trying to find the answer for question 16, it'll be mostly in part A or B, right? It would not be in C or D, right? The answers for C, for 19 and 20 would be in C or D. What I'm trying to say is that they are in descending order. All right, they're not in ascending order, they're not haphazard, so you are very clear of when and where you would find those, right? First thing is that you'd be looking for keywords, and then you'd be looking for the paragraphs, and you'd be scanning them, right? We're scanning them, we're not reading them, we're not understanding them, we're scanning them, right? Because you have 12 minutes, and out of those 12 minutes, you just have 4 minutes to read the text, all right? Okay, so you were just going to mark the keywords there. If you need to give the patient a standard liquid feed, the tube to use is dash in size. So what we're looking for here is size when we're trying to give someone, a patient, a standard liquid feed, right? These are your keywords, all right? I'm sure all of you can do it. I'm sure you guys understand it. It's one of the easiest reading exercise, but these exercises can be very confusing. All right, so you have to go for keywords and then you would be reading the paragraphs, right? The next one says you must take out the feeding tube at once if the patient is coughing badly. Now here it is patient coughing badly, experiencing what? Take out the feeding tube. When do you take out the feeding tube, right? You're questioning, you're asking yourself that when would I take out the feeding tube? When the patient's coughing badly. So somewhere around there, there is another thing the patient's experiencing when you have to take out the feeding tube. All right. If a child is receiving dash via feeding tube, you should replace the feed bottle after 4 hours. So here it's very specific that after 4 hours, and it's talking about child, right? So you're talking, see, now we haven't read the paragraph. We don't know what the text is about, but we do know that it's something to do with the feeding tubes, right? It could be about the NG tubes, right? It is about it mostly because, because that's what we're thinking, right? So it's specific to a child, specific to when the person's been, that he's been fed for about 4 hours. Everybody clear how you take out the keywords, right? What you have to do is you have to start by reading 16 to 20. You mark the keywords, right? And you know that the answers for for 16 and 17 are going to be somewhere in A. For 18 and 19 are going to be somewhere in B. It could be haphazard, but mostly it isn't. Everybody clear about that? Should I move forward? Because I've been making you do this exercise, right? Okay, no questions. Should I move forward? Any question at all? If not, then I'll be moving in. How many minutes? You have 2 minutes to just read all of the questions, 1 to 20. With practice, I'm 110% sure all of you can. I'll be giving you another exercise to do, right? So from question 1 to 20, you all are going to read them in 2 minutes. It's a game of time, right? This one is a game of time, and trust me, you can do it. If you think that you're having 15 minutes and you start practicing by 15 minutes, no matter what level of preparation you've done so far, it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you are in the middle of it. I don't recommend that you time yourself 15 minutes. Start by 12 minutes. Start by 12 minutes. I know you'd be panicking, but you see, you don't have to panic. That's the most important thing, because you do know that you've marked yourself as 12 minutes. All right? No. First, you need to read 16 to 20, right? Then you go back and you read 8 to 15, right? Okay. Most of the candidates, they go from 8 to 15, and then they go 16 to 20, and then at the very end they go to question 1 and 7, and I'll tell you why you do that, right? But for now, you mark the keywords. When do you start? What is the time limit? And how much do you read? All right. Now, most of the candidates, they fail the OET exam in reading, right? Listening, most of them pass. Writing, it's easier than IELTS and TOEFL, right? Speaking, all of them pass. It doesn't matter what you sound like, right? What your accent is like. They just want to see if you can and many of them pass. The most, if you want to pass this exam, if you want to pass reading, try to practice part A as much as you can. I'm not saying don't you have to, because you need around 33, correct questions, right? You need around 33 to 34 correct answers, and so that you can get a grade B. But if you want to pass it, try to get around 18 out of 20 correct in reading. Right? I would recommend that with more practice, all of you can get 20 out of 20, because the answers are right there. Right? The answers are right there. You just have to scan it. All right? Try to get as much marks as you can in part A for both reading and listening. Is that clear? Any questions? No? Now let's just read this one. It says in here, answer each. It's not clear? Dr. Fatma, it's not clear? I'm hoping it is. Right? I'm hoping it is. Right, so answer each of the questions 8 to 15 with a word or short phrase. It again says the same thing. Include words, numbers, or both, right? It has been saying it for centuries, right? It has been saying it for centuries. Not centuries, I mean, it's just started 10 years back, maybe OET. But the thing is that it's mostly saying, I'm hoping they won't experiment with you. But if they do, then you know that you just have to read this or this, all right? And it'll just take 1 second maybe. All right, let's move forward. Now your reading part, your reading questions 8 to 15. There you had to fill in the blanks. Here you might have to answer in phrases, right? Here you're thinking, or you might have to pick a phrase from the text there, right? And you have to be very careful of your spellings there because they have given you the text. Here you cannot give excuse that my spellings are incorrect. Right, your spellings are supposed to be correct, and they are going to cut your marks if your spellings are incorrect because you're not putting words from yourself. You're just taking the words from the extract and putting it here. Is that clear? Right, let's read this question. It says, what type of a tube should you use for patients who need nasogastric feeding for an extended period? So they're saying what type of tube, right? There will be a paragraph in one of those texts where they'll be talking about the types of tubes. They'll be talking about the people who need it for extended period of time. So you have to find out what type of tube, right? So see, what you have to see in question 8 to 15 is the first word, what. They're mostly looking for names, right? Then if they're saying if, then it's something that you might have to understand how, right? These are your first words, right? If, what, focus on the first words of these questions, right? What type of tube? What should you apply? What should you use? What equipment should you use? If initial aspiration of the feeding tube is unsuccessful, if aspiration unsuccessful, these are your three words. Don't go like this, marking everything. Don't do that. This would mess yourself, right? You would mess yourself up if you do that, right? What you have to do is in this part of your part A, you're going to mark the first word, right? The first word, right? Okay, and then you would be marking the thing that you're looking for. So here you're looking for the type of tube for extended period. What should you apply to a feeding tube to make it easier to insert? Apply your keywords. Mostly in these questions you have maximum 3 keywords, right? Minimum 3 keywords, maximum around 5 keywords, right? It depends on the length of the question, but mostly there are 3 keywords that you have to look for, right? The first one, the second one is about what they're talking of, and what in relation to they're talking of to this question, right? Is that clear? Right, so mostly 3 keywords in each of the questions. What should you use to keep the tube temporarily in place? What should you apply to make it easier to insert? What equipment should you use initially to aspirate a feeding tube? And initially, see, it's important you mark this out. So initially, aspirate. These are your 3 words. What equipment? Initially, aspirate. Everybody clear so far? Any questions? The screen is very small. Can't see anything. Okay, can you see now? Thank you for saying it. I didn't see that. Can you see it now? Is this clear now? Can you all see it better? I'm sharing my screen.
Yes, thank you.
Good. I hope you understood all of it, because it's important. If you want me to go over it again, I would go over it again, but part A is really, really important. All right, okay. So what I'm saying is mark the first word. This is why I shared the file. This one is on page 8 of the authentic reading files, right? You can go through that, open it in your laptop, because I'm hoping that you all are using at least 2 of the devices, either mobile phone or the laptops, right? I recommend that, right? So the first word and 3 keywords. All right, here it says, if initial aspiration of the feeding tube is unsuccessful. If aspiration, this is the first word, right? If aspiration unsuccessful, how long? So now they're talking about the time. How long should you wait before trying again? So they're talking about the time. Maybe they're going to say 4 hours or something, right? Okay, everybody clear? Any questions? I hope you guys got it. Yes. Hoping you got it, right? How should you position a patient? Position a patient, right? Where did it go?
Sorry to
Right,
interrupt you,
yes,
doctor.
yes.
I cannot see the screen. I'm sorry.
Can you guys see the screen? You can't see the screen. How about now?
Yes, I
No,
can
it's
see the
all blind
screen.
over here.
It's blind. Please reconnect.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, the rest of you can? That's great. That is great. Thank you. Right, so what device allows, or if you cannot, just go to page 8 of the authentic files. I'm reading questions from 9 to 15, 8 to 15. All right, I'm on question 14 of it. If aspirate exceeds pH 5.5, see, they're very specific. right? So you have to look for these words in your paragraphs, right? Everybody clear? Right? You're going to scan. You have 2 minutes, and I'm sure all of you can do it in 2 minutes. All of you can. It doesn't matter how long you've been practicing for it, and how many practice tests you should do. It doesn't matter if you've been practicing for 3 months, for four weeks, for 4 days, for 5 days. There are people who have cleared this exam in 7 days, and most of them, they have average understanding of English language, and they have cleared it. So trust me, you can do it too. All right, you need to have faith in yourself, and I recommend that you do at least 30 reading and listening exercises before you step into your exams. Right? I'm not trying to discourage you. What I'm trying to say is the more practice you do, the better it is for you. And there is one more thing, that these exams are almost luck based. All of the exams are almost luck based. So don't worry, it's not the end of the world if you don't clear it. Take it again. That's all right. We are having this blessing of COVID-19. Definitely you have time to take another one. All right. Okay, nobody's running out of time. You're never too late to do anything. All right, I have many candidates who are above the age of 40, and they are still taking USMLE. They're taking their AMCs, their PLABs, right? So you're never too old, right? You doctors have to study forever. Trust me, you got yourself into it. You're to blame yourself. All right, so let's move forward. If there are no questions, and I hope you didn't get offended by this, but this is the truth. Okay, right? So I'm saying at the very end, reading file. I've shared the reading file, Dr. Fatima. I'll share it again. I'll share it again here, but I've shared it. Okay, let me just share with you again the reading file. So you see, I said that you should read, or you should do this at the very end of it, right? You should do question 1 to 7 at the very end of it, because it is important that you understand the paragraph. See, these are like titles of it. If any of you have done IELTS, right, then what they want you to do is they want you to give headings to some paragraphs, right? So these are the headers of the paragraphs that you're reading, right? There will be a paragraph, they'll be talking about just the risks of feeding a child, right? Even though the whole text is for a nasogastric tube, but there will be one of the paragraphs, they'll just talk about the risks of feeding a child. Maybe it's paragraph A, maybe it's D, maybe it's C, right? So here it is haphazard. So when you're done with the rest of the questions, I want you to come at the very end and do these. Then it'll be very easy for you, right? Everybody clear? I've shared the file again, Dr. Fatima. I'm on mute again. I hope not. All right, so calculating. So here there will be a paragraph that will be talking about calculating the length of the tube that will be required for a patient. So a paragraph talking about this, right? It could be D, C, B, right? The outward appearance of the tubes, a paragraph talking about that. Who to consult, this is your keyword. Who to consult for food requirements, liquid food requirements, very specific. How regularly different kinds of tubes need replacing. So paragraph talking about replacing of different kinds of tubes, right? Knowing when it is safe to go ahead with the use of the tube for feeding. All right. Now, what we have done is that we have done a very important thing, learning how to read the questions, right? Okay, I don't recommend that you go over, if you're taking this test for second time or the third time and you're bored with it, I don't recommend that you go and do IELTS test. I would recommend that you go and listen to podcasts. I would recommend that you go and read books that you like or love, because what they're trying to see is if you understand the language and the context, right? And it doesn't matter where you're practicing from, right? You need to have the basic understanding of the language, right? And I'm sure you all have it, right? You all have it in you. So we've read the questions. I've sent the file again. I hope you all have downloaded it, right? I would give you, all of you guys, 4 minutes, as I said earlier, right? You guys have 4 minutes to read the text 1A, B, and C, right? You guys have 4 minutes to read the text A, B, and C, and I would tell you later how you'd read it. But for now, you all have 4 minutes. I'm hoping you all have downloaded it. If not, then I'll take a screenshot and I'll send it to you. Okay? Did you guys get it? Did all of you get it? If not, then I'm sending a screenshot. I'm hoping you all have it. And I'm hoping you all can hear me and I'm not talking to my cats in here.
Yes, loud and clear.
That's great. May I know your name, please?
I'm Paul, nurse. I'm a nurse here.
Okay, okay. So this is this is Nurse Adrian. How you doing? I hope you understand. And see, reading and listening is same for all the doctors, dentists, and nurses, right?
I can
Okay.
understand. Actually, I tried the sample exam already.
Yeah. And and
Yes.
and did it work for you? Did you get it?
Yes.
That is great, Paul. All right,
Mm-hmm.
you're being a good sport. Thank you for being that.
Thank you. I actually
Yes.
booked my exam this month, 24.
All right, good luck with that. Good luck with that, right? I'm hoping you are following me, right? So you guys have 4 minutes. I've just shared the screen. Sorry, I've just sent the text, right? I've shared the screenshots and you have 4 minutes to read it. And I mean it. It's 4 minutes and you all can do it. Trust me. Should I start the timer? Okay. All right, you guys have 4 minutes to do this. Just scan the paragraph, all right? Scan the paragraph. All right, you have one last minute. I'll give you 1 extra minute, Dr. Alicia. Don't worry about it. Your time runs out very quickly when you're taking this exam, right? That's why I want you to go as slow as you can. No, no, as fast as you can, sorry. All right, guys, time's up. Time's up. Were you all able to read it within 4 minutes? Or was it tough the first time? I need honest answers. And all wrong answers are welcomed. Very welcomed. You were able to read it within 4 minutes, Dr. Amina. That is great. Were you all able to read it, Dr. Fatima? Dr. Paul? No. All right. Well, it takes practice, right? It takes practice, it takes time. This is your first time. And I'm telling you that, with practice, you all can. It doesn't matter what level of preparation you've done so far. It doesn't matter how much English you can speak. It doesn't matter if you have an accent or not. It doesn't matter if you skip grammar like me in your elementary classes, right? You all can do it. Trust me. Now, if you were not able to do it, right? If you weren't, I'm kidding, I did take the grammar very seriously in my elementary classes, but if you were not able to do it, then, there are certain tricks that you can Google, right? You can say how to learn reading fast, right? You can type that on Google and they'll come up, right? There are many websites where they can help you, but here's just telling you the short thing. See, I told you, if you want to learn reading and listening, it is important to work on your own, right? For writing and speaking, you definitely need help of someone else because you cannot assess it yourself. But reading and listen, it's up to you. It's a self skill, right? It's a self-developmental skill. All right. So what you can do is that if you are very slow at reading, that I would recommend that you use a fluorescent pen or highlighter, right? I would want you to use a yellow highlighter or a neon one, right? And I would want you to, what we usually do is most of us, we read like this pediatric, nasogastric tube, use, right? We read robotic, we take one word at a time. You can teach yourself how to read more fast by using a highlighter and making your eyes follow the highlighter, right? So I'm just going to switch it to highlighter if I have it here, right? So I'm using a fluorescent one, right? So usually people read like this, right? Nasogastric is the most common, or maybe you take 2 words at a time. Now, what I want you to do is when you are practicing or reading any book, I would want you to take your pen and make your eyes follow your pen. All right? Okay? Right? So when you do that and you read out loud, initially I would want you to read out loud. I don't want you to do it on the exam day. Right now when you're practicing, I want you to read out loud so that you can understand the thing, right? And when you were done to around 15 exercises, I told you that you should do 30, right? When you're done till 15, right? Then till then you would be almost mastered it. All right? You would have mastered it. All right? So you can read like this. I would want you to read in phrases, right? Nasogastric tube is the most, right? Like you can read like this in bundles, right? Read in bundles, right? Read in phrases, right? That'll help you in increasing the speed. Okay, so nasogastric tube is the most common route for enteral feeding. It is particularly useful in the short term and when it is necessary to avoid the surgical procedure to insert gastrotomy devices, right? Now, see, I told you that you have 4 texts. I'm sure you all went through pathology books, right? When you were reading your pathology in your medical school or in your nursing school, then what you used to do was that you were given the beginning, right, of a disease, right? For example, if you're talking about insulin, you were told about the definition of it, right? So part A is mostly going to talk about the definition of it, or maybe about the types of the things, right? Or maybe about the ways these things work, right? Or about a disease. Type B would, it would talk maybe about the complications of it, right? About the signs and symptoms of it. Mostly the first word, right? The first thing that they say, they give you the headers. Right here, they have given you a header, which is pediatric nasogastric tube. So here they're talking about the pediatric nasogastric tube. Here they're talking about the inserting of the nasogastric tube, right? This text is all about inserting, how you insert the nasogastric tube. The next text, let's see, it talks about the merriment, right? The merriment, or how you put the nasogastric tube in. You can also see that it's told that how to obtain aspirate, right? All right, or how you proceed to the feed. So it's more about the procedure of the thing. Kindly turn off your mic if you don't have any questions. All right. Yes, I am talking. Can you not hear me? Saliha. Can you all hear me? I wish this wasn't were sure. You can all hear me? That's sad. Yeah, you can. That's great. All right. So we're going to read this paragraph, and then we're going to move to B and C. And listening tips are really easy, right? That's an easier one. That's the easiest subtest of your OET. That's the easiest one. All right. Administrating feeds and fluids. All right. Let's move to this one. I'm telling you, it's very okay. So let's read it, right? Nasogastric tube is the most common. So I don't recommend that you read this one because, you know, it's mostly talking about the definition. But if you want to, you can read it on your own. In the long term, gastrotomy feeding may be more suitable, right? There was a question where they were asking about long term something, right? When you were trying to feed someone, right, for the long term, and you were talking about pediatric nasogastric tube, then, you know, there was a keyword that we marked like that, right? Issues associated with pediatric nasogastric tube feeding include, now here they're talking about the issues. The procedure for inserting the tube is traumatic for the majority of children. The procedure, right? Tube, very noticeable. Patients are likely to pull out, right? I'm marking the keywords, right? I'm telling you to mark the keywords because that would help you, right? Patients are likely to pull out the tube, making regular reinsertion unnecessary, right? Okay, aspiration of the tube incorrectly placed. So they are talking about the issues in here, and you just have to mark. See, you don't have to understand the passage, even though when you're reading, you understanding it, right? All of you are understanding it when you're reading the passage, but here mostly you have to just mark the keywords, right? Task A is about the extraction of the knowledge, right? It's about you putting the information that's already here into the questions, right? I'm hoping you all have read it, but I'm just going to read it with you, and I'm just going to read part A and B so that I can see if you have understood and would be answering some questions. All right. Damage to the skin of the face, increased risk of gastroesophageal reflux with prolonged use. There was a question where they asked about it, right? Maybe there was. Inserting the nasogastric tube, all tubes must be radio opaque throughout their length and have externally visible markings, wide bore for short-term use, right? They were asking about the term use. No, you can use a pencil, Dr. Amina. Yes, but I would only want you to mark the keywords. I don't want you to do this because then you'd be confused on your exam day, right? Make the habit of just marking the keywords. I mean, you know, you are already cursoring your pencil or your pen. I don't recommend that you use a pen. I recommend that you use a pencil, right? Okay, but I would only want you to mark the keywords. I don't want you to mark the whole test because if you do that, then you'd be confusing yourself, right? I'm just trying to make things easier for you, right? When should it be changed? It should be changed every 7 days, right? Range of the size for pediatric is 16 to 14. There was also a question regarding sizes. All right. For long-term use, they're saying use fine bore should be changed every 30 days. In general, tube size of 6 French are used for standard feeds, 7 to 10 French for higher density and fiber feeds. Tubes come in a range of length, usually this and this, right? They were asking a question on standard feeds, right? So they were saying when and how you do with the standard feeds, right? Okay, wash and dry hands thoroughly, place all the equipment needed on a clean tray, find the most appropriate position for the child depending on the age or the ability to cooperate. Older children may be able to sit upright with the head support. Younger children may sit on a parent's lap. Infants may be wrapped in a sheet or blanket, right? Check the tube is intact when stretched to remove any shape retained from being packed. Now, it's not necessary that the words that they say are going to be the same, right? Exactly the same, right? So here there was a question where they said if it gets bent or when you unwrap it, how you should, check it. Mere from the tip of the nose, you all know it, right? I'm sure all the nurses and doctors have read it, right? Lubricate the end of the tube using a water-based lubricant, right? There was a question how you lubricate it, right? Or what you apply to it. So this is your answer exactly, right? This is your answer exactly. All right, gently pass the tube into the child's nostril, advancing it along the floor of the nasopharynx to the oropharynx. Ask the child to swallow a little water or offer a younger child their soother to assist passage of the tube down the esophagus. Never advance the tube against resistance. If the child shows any signs of breathlessness, severe coughing, remember they were talking about the coffin. This is the other answer there. Remove the tube immediately. Lightly secure the tape until the position has been checked. Right now, let's just see if we can find any answers for the questions that we saw. Right? So we're not going to do this. We're just going to move to question 16 to 20. If a feeding tube isn't straight when you unwrap it, you should do what to it? There was an answer in the beginning. Stretch it. Right? That was the answer. Stretch it. Okay? Next one says patients are more likely to experience DASH if they need long-term feed-in via tube. So the answer wasn't there, all right, in one of the paragraphs that we said. Okay, so it says if you need to give the patient standard liquid, the tube to use is which tube? Anybody saw that? Anybody read that? We talked about 2 tubes, right? When you're given a standard liquid feed, which tube should you use? Let's go back at it. Six French, right? Okay. All right, let's move to the next one. I hope you guys are following me. All right, let's do one more of it and then we'll be moving to B and C. You must take out the feeding tube if the patient is experiencing coughing badly or is experiencing what? We just saw it right now. Are you guys all following me and understanding it? Breathlessness, right? Right, Dr. Fatma? So with practice, you'd be able to do it. Trust me, you all would be able to do it. What
Excuse me,
say, yes.
Doctor?
Yes.
Just want to ask.
Yes.
The answer is signs of breathlessness or breathlessness?
You're going to say breathlessness as exactly as it is, not signs of it, right? Severe coughing, that was there, right? They're not going to give you the same words, right? They would give you the same word once, but the synonym or the adjective they use would be different. There they said severe cough, here they're saying coughing badly, right? If you read the paragraph, no, Dr. Paul, you're going to write the word as it is, right?
Yes,
you
but
wouldn't
I'm
want
not
to write.
yeah, I'm not sure if breathlessness or signs of breathlessness.
No, just breathlessness. If you just say signs of breathlessness, that's okay as well. But you have to use the word breathlessness, right? You're not going to call it dyspnea. All right?
Thank you.
You're not supposed
Yes.
to change the words. All right? You're not going to change the words. All right? Okay.
Okay.
Everybody clear? Should we move to part B and C? Because this is how you do it, right? I gave you the tips and the tricks, and this is how you're supposed to do it. I'm going to move to part B and C. And I told you that on your exam day, you know, your part A would be collected back. I know it's been too long and we've been talking about it. Listen is very easy. If you guys would be tired, I'll be taking another session. Don't worry about it, right? And I'll be taking the mock for those who paid, right? All right, so now we're moving to part B and C, right? So you have 45 minutes for both B and C. I recommend that you choose your favorite out of these, right? You would be solving your exam and you would choose what you're good at. It's not necessary that all of you would be good at C. It's not necessary that all of you would be good at B, right? So choose your favorite. What makes you gives you more marks, right? And I recommend that you do part C first and then do part B, right? And you're given 45 minutes. How would you divide the time? Let me tell you how you divide the time. Right, so I recommend, where'd it go? Right, so I recommend that you have been given 45 minutes, right? Okay. First off, think of them as 40 minutes, right? Think of it as 40 minutes. Out of those 40 minutes, right, give 25 minutes, right, or not even 25 minutes, give 20 minutes to both of them, right? Part B, part C, 20 minutes, right? You were given 45 minutes originally, but I recommend that you do each of the parts in 20 minutes. Out of those 20 minutes that you're given, right, give 5 minutes to reading the questions. Sorry, to reading the paragraphs, right? To reading the paragraphs. All right, in both of them. And the rest of the time that you have, you would be answering the questions and you'd be reading them. All right. First, the first 5 minutes that you're given, right? The first 5 minutes that you're given, you just read the paragraphs that's given to you and you can do it. In part C, you'd be given 2 paragraphs, right? You'd be given 2 passages. Okay. You'd be given 2 passages in part C. I know it sounds difficult and I know that you're freaked out. Don't worry, you'd get through it and I'm sure you all would be able to do it with practice. Trust me, you can and you would. So let's move to part B and C. I'm just telling you how you divide the time, right? In your part B, you would be given how many questions? You would be given around 6 questions, right? Your part B has 6 questions, right? And I recommend that, sorry, I apologize, right? You'd be given 6 questions, right? And you have 2 minutes per question. How many does it make? It makes 12, right? It makes 12. So you're given just 12 minutes to do part B. Do you understand the time division? Are you guys confused? Should I do it from the beginning? See, you're given 45 minutes, right? You're given 45 minutes. Think that you're given 40 minutes, right? Okay. You're given 2 minutes for each of the passage. Sorry, you're given passage B and C. Passage C has passage C has 2 subparts, right? 2 texts, right? B has 6 questions, right? Yes, please. Anybody's asking something? Let me just complete this and then you can ask, right? Let me just complete this. What I'm saying is that you're given 45 minutes. I would want you to think that you're having 40 minutes, right? Okay. And then you have to see what is the division of it. You're given 6 questions in part B, 6 passages in part B, 6 short passages in part B. In C, you're given 2 passages, passage A and B, or 1 or 2, right? Now, if you feel like it's been cruel that you do 20 minutes or 10 minutes for each of the part, then I recommend that you turn them into 12. Right, so maybe 24 minutes in total for part C, right? And 20 minutes for this one. Sorry, 15 minutes for this one.
So you mean we do part C, 6 questions in 12 minutes and the other 6 questions in 12 minutes again?
Yes. Basically, for each of the passages that you're given, right? A, B, C, right? I would want you to do all of them, each of them in 12 minutes. Are you following me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is almost 36 minutes. I've given you 40 minutes total, but this whole is almost 36 minutes. Part C would be given 24 minutes to it, even though I said that 20, but if you want to add more than 24 minutes is maximum. For this, you would be given the rest of the minutes that there are, total 36 minutes for this. Time yourself like that, the rest of the time, because you know, when you are going to do the exam, the time's going to fly. You wouldn't even realize when you would be left with the last 5 minutes, right? So each of the text, give 12 minutes to each of them, right? Each of the texts that you're given, give 12 minutes to each of them, right? Part C has 2 texts, right? Let's call them text A or passage A, passage 1 and passage 2. Give 12 minutes to each. There will be 6 questions in each of them. 2 minutes per question. Are you guys following me? And I recommend that you start with part C, then do part B, because part B is kind of easier. Should we move to part C? Everybody clear about the time division?
Yes, clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so let's move to passage C first. Okay, it's on page 17. Okay, now, you know, if you were taking IELTS, then you would have been, it would have been written here A, B, C, right? D, E, F. You'd be given 6 passages per the text given to you, right? This is text 1, right? This is text 2. Mostly they give you, 6 passages. There could be more than that. There could be more than that, but mostly 6 passages. All right? Okay. And here, I don't recommend that you first read the question. Part B and C is more related to how you understand the passages, right? How you understand the things. It's more of understanding. All right? It's more of understanding here. What kind of questions could be there? We'd come to that. But first, I would want you to read this passage in 1 minute. All right, you guys have 1 minute to read this passage, and you're going to stay here. You're going to read this passage in 1 minute, and then we'll be moving to the questions. Once again, in here, all the questions that we have are in descending order, right? Question 1 would be related to passage 1. Question 2 would be related to passage 2, right? It could be that, there is a mixture somewhere, but there isn't. It's all in the descending order. Each question corresponds to each of their passages. All right, so you guys have 1 minute to read this passage, and I'm sure you all can do it. Understand this passage in 1 minute. Okay? Then I'll read it with you, and then we'll read the questions and the options, and I'll tell you how to get rid of them, right? How to select which one is the right one. All right, I hope you all have read it. Right, Dr. Alicia is saying, do you need synonyms or vocabulary for this? No, this is just basic English. I'm hoping you all understand it, right? There are certain words that you all need to know. We'll be talking about it, Dr. Alicia, don't worry about it. All right, so let's just read the passage. It says, it's about asbestos, right? Asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral that has been linked to human lung disease. It has been used in a huge number of products due to its high tensile strength, relative resistance to acid and temperature, and its varying textures and degrees of flexibility. It does not evaporate, dissolve, burn, or undergo significant reactions with other chemicals. Because of the widespread use of asbestos, its fibers are ubiquitous in the environment. Building insulation materials manufactured since 1975 should no longer contain asbestos. However, products made or stockpiled stockpiled before this time remain in many homes. Indoor air may become contaminated with fibers released from building materials, especially if they are damaged or crumbling. All right, okay, so we've read the passage, right? If you want to mark the keywords, what would be the keywords here? Occurring naturally, natural mineral. It's related to human lung diseases. It has been used in a huge number of products due to its high tensile strength, relative resistance to acid and temperature, right? Flexibility. It does not evaporate, dissolve, burn, right? With other chemicals. Widespread use of asbestos, right? So its fibers are ubiquitous. Can anybody tell me what this word means? Building insulation materials, so it's used for insulation since this term, right? Mark the dates, the words, the adjectives. What you have to do is, in these texts, you have to mostly look for adjectives, right? The things where the passage is talking about the quality of something, right? They're not going for nouns, they're not going for verbs, they're going for adjectives here, right? Mostly. Should no longer contain asbestos. However, products made or stockpiled before this time remain in many homes, right? So they were stockpiled. Indoor air may become contaminated with fibers released from buildings, especially if they're damaged or crumbling. I hope you guys understood this passage. Now we're going to go to the question. Yes, it's found everywhere. Thank you for answering, Dr. Salia. Right, so this is the first question. right? This is text 1. This is question 1. It says the writer suggests that potential for harm from asbestos is increased by. Now, in all of these questions, you'd be given 4 options, right? I hope you all are not tired. I'm about to end this, hopefully. Yes, for sure, I am. All right. And if you guys want, then we'll take break and then we'll continue after it. But for now, I hope you guys are holding on, right? So the writer suggests that the potential for harm from asbestos is increased by. You'd be given 4 options. Out of these 4 options, just 1 is true, right? Just 1 is true. One of them is false, right? And the other one of them is true, one of them is false, one of them is not given, other one is talked about, but not completely, right? Please write this down. It's important. It's important for your part C as well, part B as well, right? So you'd be given 4 options. Out of those 4 options, one of them is true, one of them is false, one of them is not given, one of them is talked about, but not completely, right? By true, I mean that it is given in the passage, right? And it's there, and what they're talking about is completely true. By false, I mean it's given there, but it's opposite to what's written in the options. By not given, I mean they haven't even mentioned it. It's talked about. By that, I mean that it was talked about it. They do touch the subject, but they do not do that completely. All right, everybody clear about this? If you guys have not understood this, please just please do ask. All right. Okay. Right. So let's do this one. This says the writer suggests. Now, mostly you have to look at this, right? Right. This is your keyword. Suggests potential for harm from asbestos. So there was a line where they were talking about the harm for asbestos. Well, how is the harm increased, right? Let me just clear this up for you. How is the harm increased? A change in the method of manufacture. What's this given in the paragraph? Let's go back to the paragraph. Right? Change in the way of its manufacture. There was a word about its manufacturing here. Right? Do they talk about it? A change in the method of manufacture is the reason that its harm is increased. Are you guys following me? Do you understand what I'm asking? Is this given in the passage? It is given, right? But it is not the reason that the harm is increased, right? So this one's wrong. This is false. All right? The way it reacts with other substance. It was given in the passage, right? It was given in the passage, but it's not one of the reasons the harm's increased, right? It's not one of the reasons that the harm's increased, right? So this would be your it's talked about, right? This option is talked about, but not in the sense or not completely. The fact that it is so used so extensively, right? Right? Okay? Right? The fact that it's used so extensively, this was given, this was true, right? We'd come to that, and I'm hoping you all are following me. Its presence is in recently constructed buildings. Is that the reason that the potential harm is increased? I mean, it was talked about, right? It was talked about, but not completely, right? This one was not given. Okay, this one was talked about. You guys following me? What is the correct answer here? Should it be A, B, C, or D? I have given it out right now, but the next one's for you. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to read the passage first, and then you're going to look at the options. Is everybody clear? Dr. Fatma, Dr. Saleha, Dr. Paul?
Yes, clear. Thank
That's
you.
great. All right. Thank you, thank you, Paul. Right. So the next one's for you. Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay. Trust me, you all can do this, right? There can be two false options. By false, I mean that, you see, I told you one of them is true, one of them is false. One of them is false in the sense that it's talked about, right? Sorry, one of them is false in the sense that it's talked about, but not completely true, right? And one of them is not given at all. They did not talk about the change in manufacture of it. They did use the word manufacturer, and they said that it was manufactured in this, and they were used in insulation, right? Okay, so this information, the way they changed the manufacture of it was not given. All right, the next one's for you guys, right? I'm not doing the word ubiquitous here. We're just moving to the next passage. No worries at all, right? The case study of the 67-year-old man is given to show that. I don't recommend that you read the questions first, so we're just going to go at the paragraph 3rd question, and I would want you to read the paragraph 3 for me. Yes, the right answer. Okay, so you guys have 1 minute to read the paragraph 3 for me. Okay. You have 1 minute to read the paragraph 3, and then we'll be doing the answer for it, and then we'll move to part B, and then in the brief moment we'll be talking about the listening skills. They're very easy. Trust me, you all can do it. All of you can do it. The more practice you do, the better you get. Reading is the one where most of the people fail. Just read the passage first, right? Then you'll be reading the questions. It's useless to read the questions first. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. And one more thing, a disclaimer. What I'm saying is the things that have worked for me. We all are different, right? Different people do different things differently. It's not necessary that what I do or what I teach my students, it works for many of them. It just if it doesn't work for you, stick with something that works for you, right? Go through a lot of videos on YouTube, go through a lot of methods, come up with a thing that works for you, right? Every person has a different way of studying, but these are the most used tricks, and these are what worked for me and that have been working for many of my students. So I recommend that you do it. But again, we all are different. All right, we have different ways of learning. Okay, have you guys read it? Should we go through it? I think the one's almost over. Okay, let's do this. There are two major groups of asbestos fibers, the amphibole and Can you enlarge the text? Okay. Is it better now, Dr. Salia? It's on page 17 of the file that I've sent you. Okay, so let's go through it. There are two major groups of asbestos fibers, the amphibole. See, you have to go for things that are unique, right? By unique, I mean different, the words that describe quality of something, the words that are adjectives, go for them, right? The amphiboles are much more likely to cause cancer in the lining of the lung, mesothelioma, right? The scarring of the lining of the lung, pleural fibrosis, scarring, right? Either group of the fibers can cause disease of the lung, such as asbestosis. The risk of developing asbestos-related lung cancer varies between fiber types. Studies of groups of patients exposed to chrystalline fibers show only a moderate increase in the risk. On the other hand, exposure to amphibole fibers or to both types of fibers increases the risk of lung cancer to twofold. Right? I hope you guys understood what it's saying. Although the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, always mark these abbreviations because they'd be referring to them again and again, right? Has a standard for workplace exposure to asbestos, 0.2 fibers milliliter of air. There's a debate over what constitutes a safe level of exposure, right? There's a debate on it. While some believe asbestos-related disease is a threshold phenomenon, which requires a certain level of exposure for disease to occur, others believe there is no safe level of asbestos, right? So let's look at the question, and I'm hoping you all can answer it, right? We were answering the question for third paragraph. In the third paragraph, the writer highlights the disagreement about, right? What is the disagreement about? The relative safety of the asbestos fibers. Were they talking about the safety of the two of the asbestos fibers? Was there any talk of that in what we read? They did talk about it, but was the safety related to two of them? No, right? So this would be your false, which is semi-false, right? We can call it SF. The impact of types of fibers on disease development. Did they tell us about the impact of the fibers? Impact of the type of the fibers on disease development. The results of studies into the level of risks of fiber types. The results, did they talk about the results? They did not talk about the results. This wasn't given at all. The degree of contact with asbestos fibers considered harmful. Right? They're saying, what do they disagree on? Right? This is semi-false. This is almost false. Right? This is not given in the passage. This one is given. Right? So this is true, and anybody of you who understood it, who answered D, would be correct. You guys understand how you're going to go about all of the passage C, right? You'd be given your text C, your part C, how you'd answer the questions there. You'd be dividing yourself into 12 minutes per passage, 2 minutes per question. You'd be given 6 questions per passage of it, per text of the part C, right? So 1 question, 2 minutes, 1 minute for reading it, 1 minute for solving it. Trust me, you all can do it. Any questions? If not, then we're moving to part B. No questions? Any questions? Any at all? I hope you understood. Okay, should we move? Right. Now here you'd be given 6 questions, right? 6 questions. Each of them come with their own passages, right? Each of them come with their own passages, and I'm grateful to all of you for keeping up with me. It's been almost 2 hours. Okay, so again, 2 minutes per questions. You're going to read the passage and then you're going to solve it. But here the thing is that you are given 3 options, right? One of them is true. One of them is true. One of them is false. One of them is not given. All right. Okay. Let's do this. You guys have 1 minute to read it. I hope you all can see the screen. Then we'll move into listening, and I'm promising you I'm going to end it in 10 minutes. Hopefully. Yes, this is part B. We're talking about part B here. Right. Have you guys read it? Should we move? Right. So it's see, you'd be given a head in here, right? You'd be given a header, and mostly it's easy once you understand the passage, right? What you have to look for here is again the keywords, the terminologies, right? The adjectives, the qualities of the words, right? Where they're talking about a quality of something, and you'd be good to go. So it says the cold chain is a system of transporting and storing vaccines. Cold chain, transporting, storing vaccines within the temperature range of this much from the place of manufacture to the point of administration, right? Maintenance of the cold chain is essential for maintaining vaccine potency, in turn, vaccine effectiveness. Purpose-built vaccine refrigerators, which are PBVR, are the preferred means. These are the preferred means of storage for vaccines. Domestic refrigerators are not designed for the special temperature needs of the vaccine storage. Despite best practices, cold chain breaches sometimes occur, right? Do not discard or use any vaccine exposed to temperatures below this or above this. So this is your standard temperature. Without obtaining further advice, isolate the vaccines, contact the state or territory public health bodies for advice on national immunization program vaccines and the manufacturer for privately purchased vaccines. Right? All right, we've read it. Now, I wouldn't tell you the answer. You would be telling me the answer, and this is a question. This is a question. It says, if vaccines have been stored incorrectly, what should they do? What should they do if the vaccines have been stored incorrectly? What should they do? Give me a minute right here. If the vaccines have been stored incorrectly, what should they do? What should be the answer for this? Should this be reported? The staff should dispose of them securely. They should be sent back to the supplier. Right? So see, what should they do? What should the staff do? Right? Should they dispose them off? It is written here, do not discard. So this is false. This is completely opposite of what they're saying. They should be sent back to supplier. No, they should. The supplier should be contacted. However, they're not talking of supplier here, right? They're not talking of supplier here. So the information is not given, right? This should be reported. Yes, it should be reported. It's written in here that this should be reported to either these people, right, the territory people, or to the person who they have manufactured for. Right? I hope you guys understood it. Let's do one more and then we'll be doing listening. Right? Okay. Again, you guys have 1 minute. Read this thing. Give me the answers. I'm not reading it for you. You're giving me the answers. All right? Let me just read it for you. I hope you read it, or I hope you're in the translation of reading it. Right. Let's see. When the nurse, does the file have the correct answers? Yes, it does. It does. It does. It does. It definitely does. It definitely does. And if it doesn't, and if you feel like, you're not having the right answer, sometimes they do have the wrong answers, but then you should check it with your mates and see if they all think the same. If they think the same and you think the same, then go with your gut. All right? Because it's very clear, right? None of them are confusing. Hopefully you all would get through this, right? Okay. So let's read it. It says, when the nurse is ready to depart, she must advise a minimum of two staff members that she is commencing home visits, with one staff member responsible for logging the nurse's movements, right? So when she's going, she has to inform two staff members, right? One of the staff members should log the nurse's movements. More than one person must be aware of the nurse's movements. Failure to do so could result in the breakdown of communication and increase risk to the nurse or practice. On return to the practice, the nurse will immediately advise the staff members of her return. This time will be documented on the patient's visit list and then scanned and filed by administration staff. The nurse will then attend to any specimens, cold chain requirements, restocking of the nurse kit, and biohazard waste. Right? Now you guys are answering this for me. According to the extract, prior to making a home visit, nurses must record the time they leave the practice, refill their bag with necessary items, communicate their intentions to others. What is the answer here? You guys have read it for sure. Record the time they leave the practice. Record the time they leave the practice. Was there any mention of time in here? It says when the nurse is ready to depart, she must advise a minimum of two members that she's commencing home visits. Commencing means starting, with one staff member responsible for logging the nurse's movements. More than one person must be made aware of the nurse's movements. Failure to do so could get into the breakdown of the communication. So there was no talking of time in here, so this is not given in the passage. Refill the bag with necessary items. Was there any talk of refill in the bag with necessary items? It was talked about the nurse will then attend to any specimens, cold chain requirements, restocking the nurse kit, not her bag, the nurse kit. Right? Restocking the nurse kit, not the bag, not their bag. Right? The nurse kit. Okay? And she will attend to it. She wouldn't refill it. She's attending to it. There's a difference in refilling and attending. So the answer here is quite clear. It's communicate the intentions to others. Right? I hope you all got it correctly. And if you guys have any questions, please do ask. If not, then let's move to the listening part of it and let's get done with it. Right? I would need 10 minutes of your more. If not, if you guys are fed up, then what we can do is we can do this tomorrow. But hopefully we'll be able to do it right now. Any questions? See, it's hard to teach everybody reading in just 1 hour, right? So it definitely takes time. All right, so on your exam day, again, you would be having part A, part B, and C. Part A would have 2 conversations. The first the conversations that you're having in your part A are going to be between a doctor and a patient, right? The answers that you get are through what the patient says, not what the doctor says, right? When the people start talking in the recording, like they'll be saying, this is the occupational English exam or English test, that's when you should start reading the questions, right? You should start reading the blanks, right? You should start reading them. You should start making the keywords from there onwards. Your answers, you want me to do listening tomorrow. All right, we can do tomorrow. Or if you guys just give me 10 minutes, I'll be done with it. Because I'm going to take a mock tomorrow and I'm very busy after that. I'm having my work and I'm still doing this. So, it's going to be difficult. All right, just give me 10 minutes. I promise I'll be done with it. All right, thank you for holding on. And apologies for the earlier inconvenience. Okay, it's just been around 2 hours, right? So part A, B, and C. Right, again, the same thing. You have to score maximum in part A. In part A, you would be given two passages. You'd be listening to two sets of recording. Each of them would talk about a nurse. If you are taking an exam, right, it'll be talking about either a nurse and patient are having conversation, or a doctor and patient are having conversation. Your answers would come off of what the patient says, not what the doctor says. However, you're going to listen carefully to what the doctor says if you want to know where or what part of answer you are at, what part of the conversation you are at. If you want to know what part of the conversation you are at, listen to what the doctor says. If you are trying to find the answers for it, listen to what the patient says, right? You would be given time to read this, right? You would be given time to read each of the passages, right? Each of the passages would be having 12 questions, right? The first passage of part A has extract A of part, the part A's extract 1 has 12 questions, right? The second text also would have 12 questions, right? So what would you do is that as soon as you start saying this is your occupational test, and when you've turned the file, you've turned the page, start reading. Don't wait for them to give you time. Let them talk. Turn the volume down, right, and start reading it, right? And I'm sure that all of you can read this thing in within 2 minutes, right? Or even less than that. Even less than that. You all can read this thing in within 2 minutes, right? Okay, right? And there will be different accents that you're given. You might be given accents which are African, right? Australian, English, American, right? So you have to listen to all the sorts of, try and find out all sorts of recordings, right? I recommend doing it from Justin files or the Maggie Ryan files or 2.0 listening files. But if you want to go through listening of IELTS, right, I've shared it. I've shared the drive link. This was originally done by Dr.Hwd, how to get full marks in listen part A. For difficult words, I'll be telling you right now. I'll be just telling you right now. All right, just give me time. Okay, I'll tell you, Dr. Amina. So what you have to do is you have to look for the words that the person's saying, right? I'm not going to share the recording with you. It's up to you, right? The recordings are there in the files, right? You should listen to them. All I'm telling you is what you should read, what you should look for. Because, you know, the recording, it is mostly going to be in an accent that you wouldn't understand. As far as part A is concerned, it's the easiest of them all. And this is the one that'll give you the most marks, right? I would recommend that you do it very, very attentively. Try to do it within the given time for sure. You'd be given 1 minute to write down the answers, 1 to 2 minutes to write down the answers. You'd be given 1 to 2 minutes to just read the questions, right? To read in the blanks. But I recommend that you do it from the beginning when you start talking. All right, so let's read it, right? So you see, symptoms, you all are doctors and nurses. I'm sure you all can get through this, right? So it says, first noticed difficulty reading 2 weeks ago, describes his vision as, right? What would the person describe his vision as? So you're looking for a quality of vision, right? You're looking for a quality of vision, like how the person sees the thing, right? Think about it, what adjective there would be, right? Whether they'd be saying it's yellow, green, it'll be blurred, it's distorted, right? Look for the synonyms there, right? Has difficulty reading printed letters. Leave this. Needs increasingly what? It's not necessary that use the same words. They'll be saying that they need more of this to do reading in the evenings. Increasingly, needs increasingly what? There might be an answer for here, glasses, right? Spectacles, or maybe a magnifying glass, right? Depends on what they're saying, right? So you're looking for words dependent on the first and the last word of your sentence, right? Found he was having to hold objects closer to see, purchase glasses from. This is your keyword. The first word before the blank or the last word after the blank, or, you know, like, which are your keywords that you're looking for? The words before the blank, just after it, or the end of it. These are your keywords, right? Purchase glasses from. From where did they purchase glasses? Could be an optometrist, right? Could be a doctor, could be a shop. Often finds that he is what? His eyes. Dash his eyes. So when he talks about his eyes, you're going to think of what? You're going to listen to the time when he's talking about his eyes, what he does with it. while wearing glasses. When struggling to see, can also experiences what? Right? They'll be telling you, and the words are very specific. Some of you asked that, is it okay that we use different spellings? Yes, in reading, if you use different spellings, they'll be okay with it, but that is in regard to when they're talking of medicine, right? For example, you're writing, you're talking about a drug, sitagliptin, right? You're talking about sitagliptin, right? And they told you that they were taking this drug, and you write it with a C, right? You write it with a C, you write E in here, you're writing Citiglypin, right? However, it's not a spelling, right? If you write like this, they'll give you a 1. But if you start writing with a K, they'll be wrong, right? So go with the words or the spellings that are phonetically correct, all right? So the keywords are the first one before the blank, the one right after the blank, and the one at the end. These are your keywords. You have to do this at the time when they start speaking. You have to rush through it. If you find the time, and I'm sure most of you can do it within 1 minute when you do the practice. Adrian, I didn't treat pain with fast acting, right? Okay. Wore glasses as a child. Brother also wears glasses, possibly because of what? Recently suffered from. Medical history. You need to look at the headings as well. Right? Treated with antibiotics, still experiencing symptoms of. Symptoms of what? Right? Lost weight following what? Wake up call. All right? Okay, they would be using these words. They'll be synonymous to it. They'll not be exactly these, but they'll be using it. Isn't willing to wear. Wearing what? Must be given what? Never had one what? Right? So your first word before the blank, this is your blank, the word before it, the word after it, the word at the very end. These are your keywords. That's how you'd be reading it. And I recommend that you read it as quickly as you can. Try to make a habit of reading these kind of paragraphs or the passages in 1 minute, and listen attentively to the patient, right? But if you're stuck, if you're lost, listen to the doctor, what they're talking about, and you'll be guided back to it, right? It's again something that you have to learn on your own. I can only give you the tricks of where to read it from. Yes, in reading, I told you you're supposed to have the same spelling, because the text is right there, right? They give you the spelling right there. If you do the incorrect spellings there, if you mark it incorrectly, definitely it's going to have you're going to get a wrong answer, right? You're going to get no marks for that. Reasons for referral: glucose in what? Indicates diabetes. Describes herself sugary foods. Extra what? Pregnancy. Unrelated to pregnancy. Her suffers from diabetes. Controlled through diet. Family history. Who suffers from it? Right? Pregnancy, morning sickness, pain in her what? Controlled with medication. What is controlled with medication? So here they're talking about what she has pain in. No vomiting. What is it? Dash is controlled with medication. Recently suffering from backache described as. You're not looking at the backache. You're looking at what is it described as. What kind of pain is that described as? Has been feeling increasingly what? Right? I hope you get the gist of it. Now let's move to the difficult one, which is part C. Right? It's very difficult for most of you. But first, let me give you a review or the tricks for part B. Right? Okay. So let's read it. It says that, you have 6 questions again here. You'd be having 6 questions for this. Sorry, not 6, 12. Almost 12 to 11, right? Mostly they change it, right? So you're given these questions here. How many times can you listen to the audio? Just once, You're just going to listen to the audio once. So in here, in part B, you would be listening to one talk, right? You'd be giving so you would be you would be given a minute to read the question, right? Or they'd be saying you have 30 seconds to read the question, right? Then it would be followed by an audio, and then you'd be answering the question. So first you are reading, then you are listening, then you are answering, right? The description of it, right? Each passage for each of these questions, you are given different voice notes or notes for each of these passages, right? So here, these words, these are exactly what they'd say. You hear a dentist discussing problems with her receptionist. What has caused the problem? Right here, you have to see who is going to talk about the problems. Both of them can talk of the problems, the dentist and the receptionist. An error with the booking system, right? Read them correctly. Now you see, in part B, what you have to look for is again the specific words, right? Booking system, this is your specific word. Appointment, communication, you'd be hearing these words. When you are listening to the recording, you're looking at the text and you're talking about what about booking? What about booking? What are they saying about the booking? What are they saying about the appointment? What are they saying about the communication, right? When you are reading, when you are listening to the recording, you're given 1 minute to listen. You're given 1 minute to read it, right? Listen very carefully. It's important. You're given 1 minute to read it, right? You're given 1 minute or around 30 seconds to read it, right? You're given that time, and then during that time, you do know that they're talking of dentist and receptionist. So what you're going to do is you're going to, when you're listening to the recording, you're thinking in your head, booking system, what about it? Appointment, what about it? Communication, what about it? What caused the problem? The booking system, the appointment, or the communication? Listen closely to this. These are just synonyms of what has happened. You're just listening to what this did, and what this did to the problem they're discussing, right? Clear? So you are going to listen to it, but when you're listening to the recording, you're thinking about what about booking system, what about appointment, what about communication, what are they talking about when it's related to these things, right? It's going to be very swift. Sometimes you wouldn't even be able to catch the question or understand the thing, but when you're listening, you have to be looking for these words, right? Right. So you hear a doctor discussing chest X-ray information with a medical student. What is the doctor explaining? Right? In the order for discussing results to the patient. So your keyword here is results. Information to include in patient notes. How to correctly examine the patient's condition, examination. Right? These are your keywords. When you listen to the recording, you'd be thinking, what about it? What about results? Are they discussing the results? Are they discussing the patient notes? Right? Or are they discussing how to correctly examine the patient's condition? So results, patient's notes, examination. You're listening to the recording, you're thinking to yourself, this is easy. Trust me. If you can do part A, part B, then you wouldn't be needing part C anyway. All right? Okay, should we move forward? Any questions? Let's move to part C. I'm going to wrap it up quickly. I hope you guys are not bored and tired, because I'm sure you are. All of that is almost the same. All of it is the same. You're given a description. This is exactly what they say. Then you're looking at this word, right? Who they're talking about, who is going to talk, where I'm going to get my extract from, where I'm going to get my answer from. You listen to that person clearly, right? You hear a medical student talking to a senior resident about assessing a patient. What is the senior resident doing, right? So you focus on what he's doing, teaching the person, explaining the person, showing the student. Teaching what? How to examine the patient, prescribe additional medications, where to observe the jugular vein, right? These are your keywords. Do mark them. Let's go to the speaking part and let's get done with it. It's more of a personal development, right? It's more of a personal thing. Okay, so these are your part C, right? Here what happens is, in the first passage of part C, in the first passage, what happens is that you're hearing an interview, right? There is an interview in part C. One of them is, there is an interview. The other one is a presentation, right? One of them is an interview. The other one is a presentation, right? How do you know? Now you see, as you're moving forward from part A, B, C, right? You have the text A, you have the text B, the difficulty increases, right? If you want to get the best of marks, try to get your best marks in these, part A, part B, and extract of part C1, right? The first extract. Because, you know, it's easier to spot. It's easier to spot when you're listening to the conversation. It's easier to spot because here the first extract is going to be an interview. So you do get the idea of when they're switching to the next question. Every time the interviewer asks the question, that's your cue that you're moving to the next question. I hope you're following me, right? So it says, why does Dr. Jefford think it's important to ask patients why they are taking certain medications, right? So here you're going to mark the first word why, right? What else you're going to look for is why they're taking certain medications. To understand, mere question. Understand history, mere awareness, question effectiveness. They would be talking about all of these things. You have to think, when you're listening, you have to think, what is he talking about, the understanding? What is he talking about, the patient history? Is he trying to understand the patient history? Is he trying to mirror the patient history? Is he trying to question the patient history? Are they trying to understand the awareness? Are they trying to mirror the awareness? Are they trying to question the awareness? Are you guys following me? These are your
So when
cues.
we do
Yes.
look at the question, like when we're listening, we do look at the question, right? First.
Yes. You would be given time to read all the questions. You would be given time here in part C. You'd be reading all the questions at once, right? You'd be given around 2 minutes, read all the questions. Then the thing is continuous. They don't give you a stop like they give you in part B, right? They give you time to listen to read the text, then listen to the text and answer. In part C, there's a continuous question reading, then there's a continuous listening to the conversation, right? So it gets difficult as you move forward in your test. Try to answer as much as you can in part A. That's your golden pen, right? That's your ticket to passing the exam. Part B, that's one of the best ones, right? I think that you should develop your instincts, your reflexes in answering them as quickly as you can, as better as you can. And then as you move forward, it gets difficult because right now the first text of part C is where there is an interview. So you can understand that when they're moving from one question to the other. When there's a presentation, definitely there are words and you're going to understand them, but it'll be difficult for you to spot when the person moved to the next question, right? In the interviews or in the discussions, whenever the interviewer is asking the question, when they're asking the question, that's when you are moving from one question to another, right? So the trick here is that you mark these words, understand, where, question, history, awareness, effectiveness. Is Dr. Jefford trying to understand the history, mirror the history, or question the history? Is Dr. Jefford trying to understand the awareness, mirror the awareness, question the awareness? Is Dr. Jefford trying to understand the effectiveness, mirror the effectiveness, or question the effectiveness? Right? That's how you'd go about it. All right, let's see the next one. Right, it's almost done. Dr. Chain explains that many people believe FIV can be contagious to humans, affect their pet's behavior, has minimal impact on cat's life. Right? So now let's do this again. It can affect human. It can have minimal impact on human. Or is it contagious to human? Right? Okay. Is the behavior if the pet's behavior is contagious, pet's behavior is affected, pet's behavior is or has minimal impact on pet's behavior, right? Okay, all right, that's how you do it. You mark these words, right? This is an easier way to do these things, right? So you mark these two words, right? One of them is the quality and one of them is the thing that they're talking about. When this person's talking, Dr. Chan's talking, when he's explaining what he's trying to say, is he trying to say that the humans affect, like the FIV affects the humans, or it has minimal effect on the humans, or is it contagious to humans, right? Is he trying to say that the pet's behavior is contagious because of the FIV? Is it affected by the FIV? Is it minimal? Does it have minimal impact on it? Is the cat's life, is the FIV having a contagiousness to the cat's life, right? Or is it affecting it? Or does it have minimal impact on it, right? That's how you do this. I hope this is understandable, right? Go through it, practice as much as you can, try to understand and try to do parts A, B, and text 1 of part C in both reading and listening as quickly and as better as you can if you want to get good marks or if you want to pass the exam. All right? If you guys have any questions, please ask. This is the end of it, right? Okay, the next one is the same. Dr. Sen says that patients with cystic fibrosis may find the side effects alarming, tend to require treatment from young age, improve their condition with frequent hospital visits. Improve, require, find. Again, you do the same thing, right? But this is tricky because you're not given time to do it separately. The recording is continuous. You only get to hear it once, and you are listening and reading at the same time. So it's important that you mark the keywords, and while you're marking them, do listen to the recording, look at the keywords. Mark the words, look at the recording, hear the recording, right? Any questions? If not, then I'm going to end it. For those who are doing mock, please just inbox me, right? And we'll be doing that. Any questions, guys?